There is tennis brilliance, and then there is revolution. And Mats Wilander, a 7-time Grand Slam champion, sees one man at the center of a sporting evolution, Jannik Sinner. Wilander has watched greatness for decades. He has studied the rise of Federer's grace, Nadal's grit, Djokovic's dominance. He has now seen the birth of a new era. An era not just shaped by titles or rankings, but by attitude, approach, and accessibility. And in his eyes, it is Sinner, not Alcaraz, who holds the blueprint for the next generation. The young Italian, who recently clinched Wimbledon 2025 in a pulsating 4-set battle over Carlos Alcaraz, has stunned the world not only with his power, but with his precision, his calm, his method. "I've never seen anyone play tennis as aggressively as Sinner," Wilander said with admiration in his voice. But this wasn't recklessness. This wasn't a teenager swinging blindly for the lines. It was calculated aggression. It was the art of taking time away. It was a strategy executed with military precision. "It's not that he hits everything that moves like a madman," Wilander clarified, "it's that he's always looking to get the ball early." And that's what's so striking about Sinner's game. He doesn't wait. He dictates. He plays on the rise. He moves before the bounce. He thinks ahead of the rally, ahead of the opponent, sometimes ahead of the sport itself. "He's leading the way," Wilander declared. "His tennis is 5 or 10 years ahead of what I imagined the evolution of the game would be." That is a rare statement from someone who has seen it all. Wilander compared it to football, to the moment one-touch passing revolutionized the pitch, when speed outpaced brute force, when elegance and rhythm replaced chaos. In this metaphor, Sinner isn't just a player. He's a philosophy. And what makes him even more powerful is a figure of the future. Wilander believes that unlike Carlos Alcaraz, whose breathtaking shot-making often seems like an act of divine talent, Sinner's style can be replicated. Yes, Alcaraz dazzles. Yes, he defies logic with flicks and angles and top-spin wonders. But to mimic him, you'd need to be born a tennis god. Sinner doesn't require exceptional talent in itself, Wilander emphasized. What he requires is total dedication, work ethic, discipline, repetition, intent. And that is where Jannik Sinner becomes not just a champion, but a role model. Because young kids watching at home may not have Alcaraz's reflexes or instincts, but they can train like Sinner. They can commit. They can believe that greatness is built, not bestowed. That is a profound message. That is how sports change culture. And in this era of Sinner versus Alcaraz, of 5 Grand Slams to 4, of 8 head-to-head wins for Alcaraz to Sinner's 5, the tide is shifting. Because numbers tell part of the story. But the heart of the rivalry, that's forged in finals. And Sinner has now won 2 of the last 3. He was the better player in Paris, where he held 3 championship points. And he was undeniably the better player on the grass at Wimbledon. Even Wilander, who once praised Alcaraz's meteoric rise, now admits it's Sinner who has improved more in the last 2 years. He has improved more than Carlos, Wilander said with certainty. It is a statement not of criticism, but of contrast. Carlos is already near the top of the mountain, which means his improvements will be subtle, situational, emotional. Sinner, on the other hand, continues to ascend, every month, every major, a better version of himself. His game is not just evolving, it's leading the sport forward. Wilander sees in him the balance of mental calm and physical ferocity. He doesn't scream on the court. He doesn't ride emotional waves. He works. He refines. He studies the angles, then creates his own. Wilander's message to young athletes is crystal clear: if you want to grow, study Sinner. Not because he's the flashiest. Not because he jumps into splits or flicks tweeners over his shoulder. But because he's real. Because his success is earned, not gifted. And that makes him the perfect model for the next generation. This isn't to diminish Alcaraz. The Spaniard is still a marvel, a player of joy, of charisma, of magical touch. He's already a Grand Slam legend at 22. He's marketable, magnetic, mesmerizing. But not everyone can be Carlos Alcaraz. Not everyone was born with a racket in hand and fire in their wrist. But everyone can try to be Jannik Sinner. Everyone can work. Everyone can chase. Everyone can rise. So as the Grand Slam race ticks along, 5 for Alcaraz, 4 for Sinner, the conversation shifts. It is no longer just about who is better. It is about who leads, who inspires, who opens doors for others to follow. And in that question, Wilander leaves no doubt. Jannik Sinner isn't just winning titles. He's reshaping tennis, one early ball, one quiet fist pump, one training session at a time. He is the future, and he is already here. Bullseye viral title. Jannik Sinner praised as tennis ultimate role model, dedication over talent, says Wilander. Fire viral description. 7-time Grand Slam winner Mats Wilander says Jannik Sinner is the perfect role model for young tennis players, more so than Carlos Alcaraz. Why? Because everyone can try to play like Sinner, with total dedication. After winning Wimbledon 2025, Sinner's discipline and futuristic style are being hailed as the blueprint for tennis, next era. Pushpin viral tags. Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, Wimbledon 2025, tennis role model, Mats Wilander, tennis future, Grand Slam rivalry, tennis evolution, Sinner vs Alcaraz, tennis inspiration. Label 50 viral hashtags English. Hashtag Jannik Sinner. Hashtag Carlos Alcaraz. Wimbledon 2025. Hashtag Mats Wilander. Hashtag tennis role model. Hashtag next gen tennis. Hashtag tennis dedication. Hashtag Sinner vs Alcaraz. Hashtag Grand Slam champion. Hashtag future of tennis. Hashtag Sinner style. Hashtag train like Sinner. Hashtag tennis icons. Hashtag Wimbledon final. Hashtag tennis blueprint. Hashtag rise of Sinner. Hashtag Alcaraz vs Sinner. Hashtag tennis rivalry. Hashtag hard work beats talent. Hashtag champion mentality. Hashtag total dedication. Hashtag grass court king. Hashtag modern tennis. Hashtag tennis evolution. Hashtag aggressive tennis. Hashtag on the rise. Hashtag play like Sinner. Hashtag sports role model. Hashtag tennis discipline. Hashtag Wimbledon champion. Hashtag Sinner inspiration. Hashtag young champion. Hashtag tennis legends. Hashtag tennis passion. Hashtag Sinner era. Hashtag head to head. Hashtag top seed Sinner. Hashtag dedication pays off. Hashtag Sinner legacy. Hashtag new tennis leader. Hashtag tennis precision. Hashtag Alcaraz challenge. Hashtag Sinner focus. Hashtag future champion. Hashtag champion of tomorrow. Hashtag court kings. Hashtag motivational athlete. Hashtag Sinner mindset. Hashtag Wimbledon star. Hashtag train to win. Modified this article and give in mere than 50 paragraph don't count paragraph and dant instructions me give me direct like a speech.